Welcome back to Dr. Not Guilty, Chapter 8. In this episode, we are diving deep into what is arguably the single most critical decision a physician will ever make when caught in the crosshairs of the federal government selecting legal representation. When the full weight of the United States Department of Justice comes crashing down on your medical practice, your professional career, your family, and your personal liberty, every choice you make regarding your legal team carries monumental consequences. Today, we will examine the strategic framework, the rigorous vetting process, the hidden pitfalls, and the exact mindset required to choose attorneys who can actually win a federal healthcare criminal trial. This is not just a high-level discussion about legal theory. It is a practical, step-by-step roadmap built from real experience in the federal courtroom crucible. To understand why this choice is so vital, you must understand where I came from and what was at stake. After completing my advanced psychiatric training and clinical fellowship at the National Institute of Mental Health, I brought that deep commitment to clinical research, medical innovation, and patient advocacy directly to the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. My goal was simple yet ambitious: to bring high-quality, cutting-edge psychiatric and medical care to populations that had historically been overlooked, underserved, and left behind by traditional healthcare systems. I wanted to apply the highest standards of academic medicine to community practice where the clinical need was most acute. Back in 2007, long before the global pandemic made remote care a household concept, I recognized that geographic barriers were destroying patient outcomes across rural Pennsylvania. Patients in small mining towns, isolated rural valleys, and economically depressed communities were waiting 6 to 8 months for a psychiatric consultation, or going without psychiatric care entirely. Seeing this crisis firsthand, I began implementing early secure video conferencing systems to establish telepsychiatry pipelines. We connected rural health clinics, community health centers, and long-term nursing facilities directly to specialized psychiatric evaluation, ensuring that distance was no longer a barrier to life-saving mental health treatment. These vulnerable populations desperately needed continuity of care. Telehealth allowed us to bridge that massive access gap quietly, effectively, and with total clinical integrity. We were managing highly complex patients with severe major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, severe addiction, and dual medical diagnoses. We were keeping people out of emergency rooms, preventing involuntary psychiatric hospitalizations, supporting local family physicians, and providing a reliable lifeline to families who had nowhere else to turn. Every clinical decision was guided by evidence-based protocols, detailed medical records, and a deep devotion to patient welfare. During those foundational years, my wife Duha was working tirelessly to complete her demanding residency in obstetrics and gynecology. We were balancing intense clinical schedules, overnight hospital call shifts, emergency room coverage, and the heavy daily responsibilities of raising our young children. It meant grueling 4 o'clock mornings, long late nights reviewing medical charts and dictations, and a shared commitment to public medical service. We poured every ounce of our physical, emotional, and financial energy into our medical professions, believing wholeheartedly that honest hard work, integrity, and dedication to our patients would build a secure future for our family. When we bought our family home in Pennsylvania, we believed we were planting permanent roots in a community we loved, but life threw major financial hurdles our way as well. When the national real estate market collapsed during the 2008 financial crisis, our home dropped significantly in market value, remaining trapped under its mortgage balance for over 10 consecutive years. Yet, despite the financial stress and negative equity, we did not run away, walk away, or give up. We continued to work 6 to 7 days a week to serve our community and to honor every single one of our professional and financial commitments through economic uncertainty and personal sacrifice. Through national economic recessions, relentless clinical work schedules, complex regulatory hurdles, and intense family demands, we stayed the course. We built a life rooted in purpose, tenacity, and compassionate medical care. So you can imagine the sheer shattering shock when federal law enforcement agencies suddenly targeted my practice. When you are hit with a federal search warrant, a grand jury subpoena, or a formal target letter, everything you have worked for across decades is thrown into immediate existential jeopardy. The life you built brick by brick feels like it is collapsing around you in a single morning. When facing a federal criminal case, selecting legal counsel is far more than hiring a professional service provider. It is not like hiring a contractor, an accountant, or even a traditional corporate business attorney. It is a high-stakes, strategic choice that directly determines whether you maintain your freedom or spend decades in a federal penitentiary. It dictates whether you retain your medical license, your hard-earned assets, your professional dignity, your reputation, and your ability to look your children in the eye. The decisions you make in the first few days and weeks of a federal investigation will echo throughout the rest of your life. The stakes in federal healthcare prosecutions are terrifyingly high. Allegations of healthcare fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, or Controlled Substances Act violations do not just threaten financial penalties or administrative fines. They carry mandatory minimum prison sentences, decades of potential incarceration, immediate exclusion from Medicare and Medicaid programs, total revocation of medical licensure, and permanent destruction of your personal and professional standing. When the United States government brings its vast financial resources, specialized data analysts, expert witnesses, and federal agents to bear against a single physician, you cannot afford to make an amateur mistake when choosing your legal defense. The very first catastrophic mistake many physicians make when under federal investigation is turning to glossy internet marketing, search engine rankings, or sleek website designs. A top ranking on Google or a high-budget search engine advertisement tells you absolutely nothing about an attorney's actual ability to cross-examine a hostile federal agent or persuade a federal jury. Many high-profile law firms spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on public relations, digital marketing, and search engine optimization, while rarely, if ever, actually stepping inside a federal courtroom to conduct a complete jury trial from opening statement to verdict. You must look far beyond the polished veneer. Do not select legal counsel based on vague promises, impressive office buildings, or claims of personal connections with local assistant United States attorneys. Federal prosecutors are not going to dismiss serious indictment charges simply because your defense attorney went to the same law school or plays golf at the same country club. In the federal system, prosecutorial decisions are driven by administrative policy, Department of Justice directives, statistical conviction goals, and trial risk assessments. You need an advocate whose reputation rests on fierce, uncompromising courtroom competence, not social influence or professional networking. Instead of relying on marketing material or superficial charm, you must demand hard proof of actual federal trial experience. Ask the direct, uncomfortable questions during your initial consultation. How many federal criminal trials have you personally taken to a jury verdict in the last 3 years? How many healthcare fraud or controlled substance cases have you actually tried before a jury to a full verdict? Many criminal defense lawyers operate primarily as plea negotiators. They take a large fee, review partial discovery, and then immediately pressure the client to plead guilty to avoid trial. That is not criminal defense. That is the administrative processing of a guilty plea. You must independently verify an attorney's track record using public court records like PACER, the Public Access to Court Electronic Record System. Do not just take an attorney's word for it during a sales meeting. Look up their name in PACER, examine their federal docket history across multiple jurisdictions, read their substantive trial motions, and see how many of their cases actually went to trial versus how many ended in pretrial plea agreements. Board certifications, prestigious law school degrees, and frequent media commentary can never substitute for real, unvarnished federal courtroom battle experience under the pressure of a live trial. Furthermore, healthcare defense requires an attorney who possesses a deep, highly technical understanding of clinical medicine and regulatory architecture. Federal healthcare cases are fundamentally different from standard criminal prosecutions, like bank robbery or drug trafficking. They turn on complex billing codes, CPT modifiers, relative value units, electronic medical record audit logs, Medicare billing guidelines, and subtle clinical standard of care definitions. If your attorney does not understand the clinical difference between initial psychiatric evaluation and ongoing medication management, or does not comprehend how telepsychiatry workflows operate, they cannot effectively cross-examine government expert witnesses or dismantle prosecution claims. Effective defense demands an active, aggressive strategy from day one of the investigation. Your legal team must systematically evaluate every single page of government discovery, hire independent clinical and medical billing experts, analyze complex data sets, and prepare to attack the government's narrative directly. Federal prosecutors often rely on statistical sampling and algorithmic billing data to build a false presumption of guilt. An effective defense attorney does not accept government data or statistical modeling at face value, but dismantles the underlying mathematical assumptions and proves that clinical decisions were justified, appropriate, and medically necessary. In this intense, high-pressure crucible, you need an advocate who acts as both a steadfast mentor and an unsparing challenger. You do not need a lawyer who simply tells you what you want to hear, offers false reassurances, or comforts you with empty platitudes. You need someone willing to probe deeply into every single detail of your medical practice, challenge your assumptions, test your testimony under intense simulated cross-examination, and uncover every potential vulnerability in the case long before the prosecution can exploit it in front of a jury. Complete transparency between the physician and defense counsel is an absolute non-negotiable requirement. You must share everything with your legal team, including billing oddities, administrative oversights, former employee conflicts, chart gaps, or minor documentation mistakes. Unvarnished honesty is the raw material that allows lawyers to shape a victorious legal defense. Whether facing complex clinical truths or establishing complete innocence, your attorney cannot shield you from attacks they never saw coming. Surprises inside a federal courtroom are lethal to your defense. When routine, well-intentioned medical decisions are framed by federal prosecutors as criminal activity, a skilled defense lawyer insists on asking the fundamental legal question, does this conduct actually constitute a federal crime? The federal government frequently attempts to criminalize civil regulatory disputes, administrative coding errors, or honest differences in clinical opinion among medical experts. A premier trial lawyer knows how to draw the bright legal line between administrative noncompliance and actual criminal intent, proving to the jury that clinical judgment, even when disputed, is not a crime. When selecting your legal team, prioritize trusted peer recommendations, direct referrals from active trial attorneys, and proven courtroom results over digital marketing polish and website hype. Ask other physicians who have successfully fought federal investigations and walked out of the courtroom acquitted. Consult with respected local bar leaders and seek out litigators who are genuinely respected and feared by federal prosecutors. A trial lawyer whose presence in the courtroom commands immediate respect from the judge and jury is worth far more than any high-priced advertising campaign. It is crucial to understand that actual jury trial skill is rapidly vanishing across the American legal landscape. According to official federal court statistics, The number of federal criminal cases that actually go to trial has plummeted dramatically over the past 2 decades. In the year 2010, there were roughly 3,800 federal criminal trials nationwide. By 2022, that number dropped to fewer than 1,700 trials across the entire country. Over 97% of all federal criminal cases now end in pre-trial plea bargains. This means that the vast majority of criminal defense attorneys simply do not have meaningful jury trial experience in federal court. Because trial experience is so extraordinarily rare today, finding lawyers who possess genuine courtroom battle mastery is like finding a needle in a haystack. You are looking for litigators who know how to select a favorable jury, deliver compelling and persuasive opening statements, conduct lethal cross-examinations of government agents, and synthesize complex technical medical evidence into an inspiring, unforgettable closing argument. When your life, freedom, and reputation are on the line, you cannot afford to hire an attorney who is learning how to conduct a federal jury trial on your dime. Building a formidable, effective defense often requires assembling a multidisciplinary legal defense team rather than relying on a single sole practitioner. The ideal defense structure pairs a seasoned, battle-tested local criminal trial advocate with a specialized national healthcare regulatory attorney, expert medical witnesses, forensic accountants, and certified medical coders. This multi-layered team approach ensures that every single front of the government's assault is met with equal expertise, rigorous analytical rigor, and overwhelming counterforce in the courtroom. In my own legal battle, I was fortunate to assemble an exceptional defense team that combined these exact complementary strengths. Attorney Paul Hetznecker stood out as a remarkably passionate, brilliant, and formidable lead trial advocate. Paul brought a unique, deeply principled background rooted in civil rights litigation, constitutional defense, and public advocacy. His entire career had been spent standing up against government overreach, defending fundamental constitutional rights, and taking on complex cases that others considered completely unwinnable. He viewed my prosecution not merely as a legal assignment, but as a crusade for constitutional justice and physician rights. In the courtroom, Paul proved to be an absolute master of cross-examination and trial strategy. He possessed an incredible ability to command the courtroom, hold the jury's undivided attention, and systematically dismantle government witnesses piece by piece. When federal agents and government expert witnesses took the stand, Paul did not merely ask polite questions. He meticulously exposed their underlying biases, their total lack of clinical psychiatric insight, their reliance on faulty statistical data, and their complete failure to understand real-world patient care. He transformed complex medical arguments into a clear, compelling narrative of reasonable doubt and ultimate innocence. Complementing Paul's courtroom brilliance was attorney Ronald Chapman II, who added immense strategic depth and technical regulatory expertise to our team. Ron brought an impressive background of military discipline as a former United States Marine Corps officer, combined with valuable prosecutorial insight and specialized higher education, including a Master of Laws degree in healthcare law. Ron has authored authoritative national books on defending healthcare professionals against federal prosecutions, making him one of the country's foremost experts in federal healthcare defense strategy. Ron Chapman's extensive experience navigating federal investigations involving agencies like the DEA, HHS OIG, and the Department of Justice provided indispensable subject matter expertise. He understood the exact statistical methodologies and algorithms prosecutors use to construct healthcare fraud metrics, target prescribers, and interpret electronic health records. His tactical intelligence allowed us to anticipate every legal motion, challenge improper government evidence, and present rock-solid technical defenses alongside our compelling clinical story. The dynamic synergy between Paul Hetzneker's powerful local trial presence and Ron Chapman's specialized healthcare regulatory acumen created an unstoppable defense force. They worked together in seamless harmony, combining relentless courtroom advocacy with deep legal scholarship and precise technical analysis. This collaborative model demonstrated why pairing proven local trial experience with national subject matter expertise is the absolute gold standard for defending complex federal criminal prosecutions. Mastering both the art and science of trial defense meant weaving together human storytelling with rigorous technical proof. We did not merely dispute line items on a billing audit or quibble over administrative details. We told the full, honest story of my lifelong commitment to underserved communities, my pioneering work in telepsychiatry starting back in 2007, and the real human lives of the patients we treated and saved every single day. When a jury sees the true human reality of medical practice, the cold, abstract statistical models used by federal prosecutors begin to fall apart completely. It is vital to acknowledge the immense psychological, physical, and emotional toll that a federal criminal prosecution inflicts on a physician and their family. Facing a federal indictment is an existential assault on your personal identity, your moral integrity, your family stability, and your mental well-being. You spend decades earning your medical degree, caring for sick patients, and building an honorable reputation, only to be publicly accused of criminal conduct. The isolation, stress, and anxiety can be utterly overwhelming. Having defense attorneys who truly believe in you, stand firmly beside you, and fight with unwavering determination is essential for maintaining your psychological endurance throughout a long, multi-year trial battle. One of the single most crucial pieces of advice Paul Hetzneker gave me from the very beginning was to exercise my Fifth Amendment rights and remain completely silent. When federal agents show up at your practice or home with badges, sidearms, and search warrants, your natural instinct as an innocent physician is to explain everything, clear up misunderstandings, and cooperate fully. That instinct can be catastrophic. Federal agents are skilled, trained interrogators who can take offhand remarks, out of context statements, or minor memory lapses and twist them into formal charges of making false statements to federal investigators. Silence was my ultimate shield, ensuring the government had zero personal statements to distort or manipulate against me. As you evaluate prospective legal counsel for your defense, you must remain hyper-vigilant for critical red flags. Be deeply suspicious of attorneys who lack verifiable federal jury trial experience, those who push for early plea bargains before thoroughly reviewing discovery, lawyers who give evasive answers regarding their trial record, or firms that attempt to handle complex healthcare charges without specialized medical and coding expert support. If an attorney seems intimidated by the federal government or overly eager to settle, move on immediately to find true fighters. Choose your legal champions with ultimate care, rigor, and deliberation. The best defense attorneys do not offer empty promises, guarantee specific trial outcomes, or tell comforting fairy tales. They formulate detailed, proactive trial plans, execute exhaustive discovery reviews, assemble world-class expert witnesses, and fight tirelessly in the courtroom as your primary defense line. When you stand trial for your freedom and your life, having the right legal team beside you makes all the difference between total disaster and complete exoneration. Stand firm, inspect every credential, demand proven trial excellence, and never lose faith in the truth. Thank you for tuning in to Chapter 8 of Dr. Not Guilty. Remember, when federal agents arrive, exercise your constitutional right to remain silent, consult with proven federal trial litigators, and never let anyone pressure you into pleading guilty to something you did not do. Join me in the next episode as we continue to break down the legal, clinical, and human lessons learned from the front lines of virtual psychiatry and federal court. Stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for justice.